Hey guys, it's Tyrone. Today I thought it'd just be a fun day to record a trade recap at the park, going over the trades I took during September. Ultimately, I lost around 20,000 for the month, and I think I made a lot of mistakes that I could have fixed or at least improved on to minimize my losses. So yeah, I'll just go over the main losers I had for the month, and even one trade where I barely missed out on a $300,000 gain, which would have been the biggest gain of my career. So make sure you stick to the end to see what happened. Going into the first trade here on WAI, I'm not sure if you guys remember this trade from my last video. This actually is one of my biggest winners, but it also was one of my biggest losers for this month. So going down to a smaller time frame here, I'm on the 1 hour chart. Over here was where I had my gain from last month from this ticker. This was a Chinese delist play. These guys dumped from 20 cents to 9, and I think I took an entry down here in the 11s or 12s. And on the day that they appealed, they ripped from 11 cents to 37. Now, even though they appealed, this one is still a delist play that's on my radar, right? So it's still on my watch list. That's why I took it again during this month, because you can see after it spiked to 37, dropped back down to 13, and you can see it started to form a mini support down here in this 13 cents range. And I think I took another entry on this in the 14s or 15s down here. You see a little spike where it looked like some buyers came in, and I was just holding it for a swing for a couple days. But unfortunately, a couple days later, there was a news announcement. The stock announced that they were going to do a reverse split. So that's never good for small caps. And you can see it dropped from 15 to 11. Originally, my stop loss was only under 13. So it would have been about a 10 to 15% stop loss. But because the news came out, it just immediately spiked down. It even dropped to 11. I managed to exit and recoup my losses a little bit around the 12 cents area. So still a wider stop loss than I would have liked. And ultimately on this ticker, I lost around 15 or 16,000 between my Roth IRA and margin account. A couple things I think I could have improved on for this trade is maybe being a little more cautious or taking another re-entry, especially after it popped already. I thought it could have another bounce when it bounced at the support area, but I also got to keep in mind when these stocks do an appeal, you know, they have to reverse split and then do another offering, and it's just not a good catalyst for holders in WAI. Next time I'm trying to play these for another bounce after they already appealed, I think I'll just go in with smaller size or just not take the trade at all because of the reverse split risk. But yeah, down around 16,000 for this ticker for the month, but I'm glad I was able to recoup some of the losses from other tickers to make up for this. The next ticker I'd like to go over is FAAS. So this was a ticker that also had delisting news, just like Y. This one had no chance of appeal and they were guaranteed to delist. But the reason why I like this one was because if you scroll back on the daily chart here, you can see earlier in the year, this went from 16 cents down here all the way to $1.58, and it even went to $2 to pre-market on this day. So this was it was a supernova penny play, ran over 1,000% earlier in the year, and now they're just coming out with delisting news. Once I saw that they were announcing delisting news on this day back here, they dropped from around 23 cents down to 11. And down here, it started to form a support in this area, and some people were accumulating it. And once I saw it starting to reverse down here on the spike, I was loading up in this area because my thought process was it's already down 50%, and on average, this is where they settle down at. So that's why I took it, and you can see had a spike, came back down, consolidated in the 13s. And later that day, it even went to the 16s area up here. So I was up around 20% at that point, but you can see afterwards it just came back down, and my stop loss was under 11. So I was just still holding on to it, expecting it to hold this 11 cents area the next day. But as you can see, as soon as it cracked under 11, it just spiked down immediately, and it dropped too quick before I could even exit. And I took a pretty sizable loss on this one. Instead of stopping out, I just went against my trading rules, and I was just bag holding it when normally I usually cut it no matter what if it breaks the stop loss. But in this case, I think I was just shook that it dropped so quickly. It dropped from 11 to 9 in 3 minutes. And, I should have cut my loss when it came back to 10 or 10.5, but I was waiting for it to come back to 11 to cut my loss. Unfortunately, never did that, and it just went to 8 and continued down. And what's even dumber is that once I saw it coming back to this 9-10 cents area, I even averaged down thinking that now 8 was the new bottom. So I'll just have another stop loss under there. Turns out, huge mistake. You can see that it attempted to reclaim the 11 level, never happened, just broke down. It was a fake out. So at that point, I just sold everything at 8 cents. So pretty big loss on me for this one here. I was down about $12,000 on this and I just didn't look at it afterwards and didn't even touch it. I should have looked at it for one more opportunity, because on the day that I dropped out, you can see here, dropped to 7 cents and it consolidated all day going into after hours. And you can even see it was making higher lows going into after hours. And at this point, the stock was down around 70%. So this really is like on the outside range of the average drop, and just kept making higher lows. Everybody was just stopping out at this point. And then in after hours, that's when it decided to get its pump and rip to 15 cents. So if I just kept bag holding this, I could have been green again, but that's just really not a good habit to have, especially when trading small caps and stuff like this, when it's just imminently delisting. So this one went from 7 cents all the way up to 15, and I just totally missed out on another 100% trade opportunity there. Some things I think I could have improved on for this ticker was just be more patient, right? Especially in a market like this where volume is low, not much people are trading bankruptcy plays like this, right? So it's better to just be patient and just wait for the setup to just become an A++ entry. Otherwise, you could just keep on getting stopped out repeatedly until ultimately you just sell it right at the bottom and then someone else picks it up just to rip it in after hours. So this was my second biggest loser for the month, and I think this is just a prime example that you guys can also learn from, of just never to bag hold stocks. Always stop out at your stop loss, and don't just hold and hope thinking that it will go back up. The market's not 100% predictable, and the best you can do is just to manage your risk as best as possible. Now going into the next trade, REMB, this wasn't necessarily one of my biggest losers for the month, but it's an example that I want to share with you guys just so that you're aware of in the future if you're ever taking a bankruptcy play like this. Now the reason why I was looking at this ticker was because REMB on September 5th, one of their subsidiaries actually went bankrupt. So usually when a subsidiary goes bankrupt, it bleeds into the parent company, and in general, I just classify it as a bankruptcy play. Ever since their subsidiary went bankrupt, they dropped from 26 to about 16 down here. So they've been slowly creeping down over the 2 weeks after they announced their subsidiary went bankrupt. Going on the smaller time frame, I think I took an entry down here in the 16s to 17s. I was aiming for 27, and it actually did pop to 22, but you know, that's not my target, so I never took my profits, even though I was already up like 30+%. Now in this market, 30% is actually pretty good, but you know, me just being greedy, and after taking those 2 big losses on WAI and FAAS, I thought that I could have held this for a little bit longer to at least make up some of the losses I made previously, but ultimately it just ended up working against me, and I think I actually stopped out right at the bottom as soon as it broke into the 16, 15 area. It wasn't exactly a huge loss. You know, I lost around 4 grand on this ticker, and this is where I just really started to slow down on my trading for the rest of the month, because at this point, I already know that the market is not giving much good opportunities for bankruptcy plays this month. The takeaway that I want you guys to have from this ticker is if the market's slowing down, especially for your specific strategy, then it might just be better to just size down and wait until the market gets hot again. You know, I knew I just had to take a step back on things and just wait for an A++ setup to really show up before going in heavy again. Now we're nearing the end of the video, and I want to go over one more trade, and this is the one where I didn't take a loss on it, but I did miss out on a potential $300,000 trade. Now this is one of the A++ setups that I'm talking about, and I didn't lose money on it. I did make around 6 grand on this one, but compared to the potential 300,000, it's nothing, you know? And I really fumbled the opportunity when I had no reason to. If I just stuck to my trading rules on this one, I would have gotten that, you know, 200,000 to 300,000 for this. So going into the ticker, this is another bankruptcy play. NASDAQ announced that they wanted to delist the company, and they dropped from 66 cents all the way down to 16. So that's about a 60 to 70% drop. And what really intrigued me on this one was the low float. They just had a reverse split, but before the split, they had around a 5 million float, and they dropped to 16. So it's super low float, very cheap play. I took an entry when it bounced all the way up to the 30s, just because, you know, I've seen some of these go crazy sometimes with setups like OTRK and MRIN. So that's why I took this one, and I was aiming for around 70 cents to $1 for this play. It sounds pretty outlandish from 30 cents, but you know, just based on the history of bankruptcy plays and delist plays that I've seen that were structured like this, I knew it had the potential to rip that high. So I was actually in super heavy on this one. In total, I had about 300,000 shares. I had about a $90,000 position total for this ticker. And I was aiming for this one to hopefully be my first $100,000 trade, just because I know it's an A+ setup. And you can see here from our 32-cent entry, it creeped up slowly and slowly, and it even hit 45 after it's dipped down here. So it was about 200% up from the lows, but I still knew it had potential to push higher, especially when the days before it just pushed to 56. Now the thing for this one is I had an extremely large position on this because, you know, when I'm super confident in a play, I do go pretty heavy in it. But I think it was just throughout the month, I was just really shaky on the plays, especially after WAI and FAAS. I took those two big back-to-back losses. When I saw that this ticker wasn't immediately going to 70 cents or $1 in the next couple days, you know, I got kind of nervous and shaken out. And you can see over the next couple days, as this thing was dropping and dropping back down to the 30 cents area, I was getting nervous if they would announce a reverse split or some kind of offering news to regain compliance. So I closed on the position early. I think I sold this at like the 35 cents area for a little gain. And ultimately I only made around 6,000 for this ticker. But you can see in the coming days, if I just held it for 3 more days, you can see rip to $1.50. And going into this trade, my stop loss was gonna be underneath 30 in my head. But I wanted to close it beforehand just in case the trade goes red, and I just wanted to stop the losses for the rest of the month. I didn't stick to my trading plan with a stop loss under 30. I sold it early, and you can just see in the next couple days, it never stopped out, no reason to sell it, and boom. On this day, what actually happened, instead of an offering, they announced a merger with a blockchain oil company, which is the most wild card lottery hitting news there. But I was in before the news came out. So if I just stuck to my trading plan with a 300,000 share position, this would have ended up being a $200,000 to $300,000 gain for me because I was aiming for 70 cents to $1 on this. Huge bummer. You know, I'm really sad I missed out on potentially my biggest month ever. But, you know, the main takeaway I just got from fumbling this trade is when I have an A+ setup on my hands, I just need to let the ticker play out. For this one, I sold it early. I had no reason to sell, you know, other than my fear of taking another loss. So in the future, I can't let losses cloud my judgment. And next time I'll just let it play out and see how it does. I did take a couple more trades on the month that were green. So I was able to reduce my losses down to 20,000 for the month. So, you know, this breaks my 1-year green streak after being green for every single month since last year, July. For now, I'm just gonna take it slow until the market heats up again, and hopefully I can recover during the month of October. So I hope you enjoyed this trade recap. I plan on making one of these every single month to see how I performed. And you know, if you think you can learn something from my mistakes, maybe improve your psychology or your own personal strategy, whatever it may be, make sure you leave a like and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss my future videos. That's all for me today. I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.